I am Greg Smith from Seafish, Head of Marketing. A very good morning to you all. I will not bore you with a lengthy intro about me today. Instead, I'm going to tell you a little bit about what we're bringing you. We've been collaborating with seafood businesses to understand where we can add more value and facilitate knowledge sharing. And together we've identified a bit of a gap and an opportunity for Seafish to host a collection of masterclasses, which will help businesses across industry with their own marketing efforts. And in turn, that supports and drives an increase in seafood consumption, which is what we're all about. That's why we're here today. It's about providing businesses with tools and ideas and skills to engage consumers across the UK. And in time, those consumer attitudes towards seafood will change and people will start eating more fish and shellfish more often. And that leads me on to our consumer brand. As you may or may not know, we launched our new brand, Love Seafood by Seafish in 2020. It's an ambitious long-term initiative, which has been built to unite a diverse seafood industry under a single common message and goal. It's ultimately about inspiring the nation to fall in love with fish and shellfish. It really is that simple. At its core, Love Seafood is a 20-year, always-on approach to seafood campaigning, which highlights industry champions like the guys we are going to see and hear from today and provides audience relevant advertising to consumers across the UK. We've also built the platform to provide seafood businesses with support and tools to help communicate to consumers. And that kind of leads me on to the value of today's session. I'd like to introduce you to three special guests today who are going to talk to us about some of the incredible challenges they've faced over the past 12 months, whilst food service has done everything it can to take on the might of COVID-19 and various ongoing lockdowns. So here are our three amigos. Mark Sargeant joins us today as our esteemed anchorman and will lead the discussion. Mark is a celebrated chef who discovered a passion for cooking at a very young age, following a period of working with Gordon Ramsay. Mark now owns and runs a number of restaurants and pubs in Kent. We're also very lucky to be joined by Bob Mccubery. Bob is the owner of Mourne Seafood Bar in the heart of Belfast. Like many in the industry, Bob has spent the past year adjusting to COVID-19 regulations, and you will hear more about that very shortly. And last but not least, our third well-respected and revered guest is Campbell Mickel. Campbell is chef and owner of the Merienda restaurant in Edinburgh. Campbell launched an at-home dining experience from his restaurant during the pandemic and has recently purchased a well-known Edinburgh fishmonger business too. Mark, Bob, and Campbell, thank you so much for joining us and a very warm welcome indeed. Mark, I'm going to pipe down now and pass it over to you.
Excellent. Thanks, Greg. Thank you. Hi, guys. Let me just scroll across so I can see everyone. Perfect. Well, here we are, a year to the day of the anniversary of the very first time that Boris told us to stay at home. I don't know if that was planned or not, but very, very poignant indeed. I suppose in our industry in particular, probably the worst thing you could ever have heard from the Prime Minister was close down your restaurants, bars and pubs and stay at home. And here we are a whole year later, still in a similar situation, although it is looking much, much brighter. So Bob, hello, and Campbell, hi. So questions. You know, I've been in the same situation as you guys, obviously. Total chaos, staff on furlough, suppliers needing payments, having food, fresh fish they can't sell to restaurants, etc., etc. I'm obviously going to flick between the two of you, but obviously, you know, please feel free to sort of throw in as you want to. What was the first thing that sort of went through both of your minds? Let's go to Bob first. When you heard that announcement, shut your doors, stay inside.
Well, probably the first thing, Mark, was a bit of panic. And then the thought, well, you know, they were discussing circuit breakers. So this was probably going to be for a couple of weeks at the start, and then everything would be fine. I never thought we'd be sitting here 1 year later, closed. You know, it just, if you'd have told me that a year ago, I wouldn't have believed you, but here we are. So I mean, the initial thing was just panic, and then just, well, calm down, and it's only for a short period of time, and then we'll be grand, we'll get back to normal very quickly.
Yeah. how wrong you were.
Very wrong.
And Campbell, what about you? I mean, what did you think?
I suppose it's slightly different to Bob. I was quite calm about it. I think I saw it coming well in advance of when restaurants were shut down. I think 2 weeks before, the Prime Minister said, don't go to restaurants, but of course didn't close us down and put us into any form of security.
Mm-hmm.
At that point, literally the same day, I started to devise a delivery menu, because if people weren't allowed to come to me, they still wanted a night off from cooking. And so I immediately, on the day of lockdown, flicked a switch on the website and went to a full delivery service from day one.
Yeah, it was a really tricky one, wasn't it? I remember, obviously throughout February, when the cases were getting more and more, and we were just sort of working out, hearing the news, what is this, kind of thing, this thing coming towards us from overseas. And on the Friday, I remember exactly that, him saying, the Friday night, everything's closing down from 9 p.m. this evening, closing pubs, restaurants, bars, all that sort of thing. But there was no actual warning or advice about what we could do with all of our staff. I know there's a lot of places, sadly, that had already kind of jumped the gun and started making redundancies and things like that, which was really, really sad. And then on the Monday after that weekend, I remember Rishi sort of announcing the furlough, and I literally burst into tears on watching the news, because I've got 160 staff altogether, and really it was a case of what on earth are we going to do with all of them. So that was not ideal in many respects, but an absolute lifesaver and an olive branch. And like you, Campbell, I think lots of people had already sort of gone through that thought process and things like that. For us, it was just a case of, I think to start with, just, making the most of the furlough, getting everything locked down. We're not used to sort of a takeaway scenario anyway. But did you find that in the early days, what sort of external assistance did you get? Were you kind of happy with the information? Let's face it, anyone in Parliament at any stage, no matter who it was going to face huge troubles with this happening. And there's been decisions made, some right, some wrong, but I don't think anyone would have coped really, whoever they were. So
I don't think anyone was prepared for what happened. No one certainly envisaged that a year down the road we'd still be in the starting blocks. And ideally would have been out of it by now after the first lockdown, and that's what we all anticipated. But obviously things were different. I don't think you can, this isn't a political forum, so we'll not get into who did what right, but I think everyone's had to just feel their way in the dark. More information would have been great if it had been forthcoming, but you just had to get on with it. I don't think we had any choice but to try and find our way out ourselves, and I think that's what we've been left to do.
Yeah, and also for me, it was a case of making, again, in the early stages, we didn't know exactly what this was, so I just wanted to make sure that, obviously, first and foremost, my staff were safe and well and looked after properly, which I think is why we just went full furlough to start with, and also that the customers as well, but when we were getting to the stage of reopening again, did you feel there was enough advice, in terms of, I'll come to you, Bob, in terms of the restrictions inside? Because it's easy to open up with your stickers on the floor and you're 2 meters apart, but you can't control other human beings. So we found that we just had to really manage the bookings and be very, very strict on how people sort of were arriving and all that sort of thing. I think the guidelines were good, but slightly ambiguous, and they did put a lot of onus onto the business owner themselves.
Yeah, well, we were quite fortunate because outside our restaurant there's a large open space owned by one of the government departments. So over the years we'd kind of mulled about, should we do something out there? But there was a bundle of red tape alongside it. So
yeah,
come the lockdown, all this red tape disappeared, which was fantastic. So we were able to move more or less our business outside. I mean, 90% of it moved outside. We took out 70% of the tables and covers inside. So we were fortunate, and it worked really well for us, and kind of forced it to do something that we had talked about for a long time, and we actually did it, and it's working really well.
Oh, good. Well, as we'll get to later, the positives sort of obviously come out of this, because it has been a bad time, but it's not all doom and gloom. I mean, assuming like me, you had quite a lot of bookings, in advance, obviously in hospitality, we're the main place that people go to in terms of, birthdays, weddings, anniversaries, all that sort of thing. How did you find it, having to pick up the phone or asking your team to pick up the phone and sort of, make all those cancellations, if people have paid deposits, et cetera, et cetera. It did throw up quite a minefield of logistical work in the background.
Customers were understanding across the board, a lot of restaurants now, we all have a policy where we charge people for no shows, etc. That all went out the window, because
I think you have to do that.
Even before the lockdown, when he was saying, when Boris Johnson announced that, don't go to restaurants, people just stopped turning up. You have a full restaurant and 20% turn up for the night or whatever. You just went with that again. You have to be understanding. You have to say, okay, we're in this situation. It's uncharted territory. You just make the most of it. And when you get on the phone to someone and say, okay, next week we're now shut down, people understood. I mean, at the end of the day, there was so much confusion. People, I don't think, really wanted to go out anyway. They were quite happy during that first lockdown, because from day one, we were during day 3 that the orders started coming in for the social distancing menu. But the streets were deserted. It takes me normally 45 minutes to drive across Edinburgh to get to the restaurant. And I was doing it in 11 minutes, because there was not a car in the street. There wasn't a pedestrian crossing a road. There was no one out. So people generally adhered, understood what they were facing, and knuckled down to it, I suppose.
It was very apocalyptic, wasn't it? In the early days, I had to go up to London to. I mean, I live in Folkestone, and I had to go there for work. And I remember stepping out at King's Cross, and it was literally like a movie. No one there. A food bag sort of blowing past in the wind, and that was it. It was very, very. And hopefully, we'll never see that again in our lifetimes. But it was a very surreal situation. And the speed of how we got locked down. So, like you said earlier, Campbell, you were looking ahead, as were we. I think if you were fairly savvy, and also the numbers started dropping anyway, because people was the uncertainty. But in terms of food stocks and things like that, did you manage to have the time to sort of run things down, or was it Boris said Friday, that's it?
No, I mean, did you have the menu we organised? We were running. It's a small plate menu, and it changed monthly. We were halfway through it, so there was the stock was there. I mean, we're not carrying huge amounts. We're quite a small establishment anyway.
Sure.
So it was. We took a hit. The biggest hit we had, I think, was we just put a new wine list on, purchased thousands and thousands of pounds worth of wine, filled the gantry with the wine shelves with all this new wine, and then never sold a bottle.
This is actually one of the largest issues, wasn't it? Is the stock. What about you, Bob? How did you find all that? Because because we didn't do what Campbell did in terms of the delivery service or takeaway. We were sitting on a fair amount of fresh stock. Well, obviously, we froze as much as we could, but you can't freeze leeks and carrots. And so we sort of gave it to a few local food banks and bits and pieces, and some staff and stuff. But I mean, did you get caught out a bit there?
No, we're pretty lucky. We would get all our fish and shellfish in daily almost. So we kind of set our menu depending on what's available. We don't buy to suit the menu, so we weren't stuck with any fish or shellfish. The wine and the spirits was probably the biggest thing, and I spent a whole day carting it all home and locking it in a room, and
there's none left
forcing
anymore.
myself not to go into that room. So that was probably the biggest thing.
You could put a lock on the door on the inside and gave your wife the key. Yes, I mean, I guess one of the main things was obviously in that respect was paying suppliers as well. I mean, I had to literally get down on bended knee and talk to all my suppliers afterwards, for the 3-month lockdown period, because you've bought so much food in, or ordered food, or to wait for the revenue to come through for the next month, as you pay, sort of thing. I have to say 95% of my suppliers were really, really understanding, and actually made a proper point of how to work with us. And then a lot of them being quite small suppliers as well, which you'd think we obviously paid as much as we could when we could, but it was tough on literally everybody. And I guess we're talking about love seafood, fishermen in particular, who go out on a daily basis, like you guys probably. Most of my fish is caught on day boats. They suddenly go out to get their catch and haven't really got anyone to sell it to. So it's a real serious issue. So obviously in this situation, we're because of my restaurants and pubs and stuff are in Kent, we feel part of the local community kind of anywhere. But I mean, did you really feel that when you were locked down, and again when you had the chance to reopen, you did sort of really maximise more on the sort of the community of people who maybe would travel into larger cities and eat out, and they were sort of coming to you much more? I mean, how did you sort of react to that?
Well, I mean, from the start, the support from your community has been fantastic. We switched from being a restaurant into being a retail operation. So
right.
Rather than buying food for today and tomorrow, we were taking orders for food 3, 4, 5 days in advance, which with seafood, which is always a risk. We were sending, our staff were changing from people who, got instant feedback, put a meal on the table. If there was a mistake, they were able to put it right, to all of a sudden they were fulfilling orders, putting in a cardboard box, hand it over to a courier, out of their responsibility. And if there was a mistake, they couldn't put it right. So it was a completely different environment for those guys. They weren't face to face with customers. They were talking to them on the phone or by email. So, a completely different environment, but the customers were great. If we made a mistake, they say, look, don't worry about it. You're not Amazon. We understand. So the community was fantastic.
Yeah. What about you, Campbell?
I suppose for me, when we started this, we didn't know what we didn't know if it was even going to work. I remember sitting here actually for the first 2 days after I flicked the switch on the website, thinking, okay, what's going to happen? And it's not my nature to sit on the couch and be at home. I'm at work all the time. And for those 2 days, there was nothing coming in. And then suddenly it did all start to kick off and the orders came in. The hardest part for me was probably getting supplies. I think the first thing I did when I decided to get the social distancing menu up and running was the first thing I did was talk to all the suppliers and ask them this very simple question: what's the supply chain going to look like?
Yes.
Everyone said, don't worry, everything's going to be just as it is. We'll keep it going. Everything will be there for you. And it probably took about 2 weeks before it fell apart.
Oh, so it did. So you found that wasn't the case then?
Absolutely. You would phone a butcher and, well, we'll maybe get that at the end of the week. We'll have that there, but we won't have that. Same with the fish. The veg man, okay, not great. I think what I found, the supermarkets, we all remember what the supermarkets were like. They became battlegrounds almost.
Yes.
The frantic panic buying, etc. The whole supply chain, I think, got diverted to supermarkets, and so our suppliers were left very short. So much so that I was doing 2 runs to supermarkets a day, just trying to keep up to speed with what I needed. There was nothing in cash and carries. Literally, my cash and carry was empty shelves.
It's terrifying, really, isn't it, to think, that this is what happens. I think
it didn't take long for me to see it fall apart.
Yeah, and I think, thankfully, that only lasted, let's say, over the last year, a fairly short amount of time.
Yeah.
But it is quite extraordinary how quickly things can, sort of fall like a house of cards. And, you take your suppliers and things for granted so often. And you know, just seeing it. I remember going into the the supermarkets was a different sort of side of things than we're talking about. Let's say lots of people not particularly acting in the best respects to everyone else. Let's say, but I couldn't believe it. You know, I lived near one of the largest sort of Sainsbury's going, and just going there to get my weekly shop. It was completely empty, decimated. So it was an extraordinary time. So let's. This is quite a blanket type of question, but let's look at what do you think has been the positives or the things that you've really taken on board and have made work for you over the last, exactly a year. Let's start with Bob on that.
Yeah, well, I mean, the two big things was our morning home service, where we, produce prep seafood meals for people at home. So for ourselves, that's been very successful. And even when we reopened, customer demand was there. We kept it on. And it's something that we will keep on forever. There is a market for people who, for one reason or another, can't get out to a restaurant, babysitters, taxis, whatever. There's definitely a market there. They want to treat at the weekend, and the reheatable supermarket stuff just doesn't do it for them.
How will you cope with that when you've got a full restaurant as well? Because that's one thing we've been thinking about. We know we could do, at the same volume of covers in the restaurant as we could take away, but it's literally how you manage that expectations of that food coming in versus serving people live, as it were.
Yeah, well, we did it during August, during the Eat Out to Help Out, when we were flat out. Yeah. And obviously the sales went down, but they were still maybe 30% of our total restaurant sales. And the menu that we offered online matched our menu that we were prepping for in the restaurant. So it was quite easy just to mix the two in, very easy, in fact.
Apart from when you've got, 25 covers order in, and then you get another 30 come in at the same time. That's the bottleneck. It's quite difficult to manage, right?
Yeah, well, the nice thing about the online is people tend to, the times they're ordering in advance. So Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, they're ordering for Saturday. So you have a fairly good idea of what's coming at you. And the oven ready meals, say the prep's all done. So it's just a matter of popping it into the foil bag and
okay, got you. So so you just did a sort of different sort of style of that. What about you, Campbell? Did you?
I think what I've taken on is that we have to adapt. We did have to, and I think that has to be the case going forward. I don't think you can hang your hat on just being a one-stop shop. This is what I do. It's a restaurant as it is. I think you have to look at all avenues now. I think for us, we didn't want to sit still. And that's what encouraged us to get up off our backsides and make something else happen. I think if I hadn't done that, I probably, we know so many restaurants that didn't do that. They didn't have the impetus right at the beginning to go out and grab a share of what people wanted. And for us, we knew that there was two ways we could have done it. One was the multiple packages with lots of little containers and pages of instructions. I didn't think personally that's what the public wanted. I think what I thought was they're going to be cooking lunch and dinner, breakfast, lunch and dinner at home 7 days a week. They just want a break from that. So as Bob was saying, I very much decided it was going to be a very simple serving we did. It was a microwavable meal, an oven ready meal. It was all in there. It was a high roast oven, 20 minutes. That was it. It was make everything as simple as possible, just to give the public a break from it. I think we all wanted to just take a night off and watch Netflix and have someone cook for us.
That's basically what that was. I think I've watched absolutely everything there is to watch. I've run out now. But did you? Sorry, Campbell, you actually bought a fishmongers during the lockdown, didn't you?
So opposite us in Edinburgh, in Stockbridge, is a fishmonger. I beg your pardon, a cheesemonger, and I was in awe at the queues outside his door from 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. right through lockdown. It was unbelievable. 30, 40 people outside in the street, no matter the weather. And retail's never been something that I envisaged going into. I'm a chef, I want to cook, and one of my suppliers is a fish shop in Edinburgh called Eddie's Seafood Market. He's been there 36 years, and he, I think, early August, late July, he put it on the market to retire. And I get emails from all the brokers in Edinburgh, and I saw it and I was quite sad. I've been buying my fish there for 26 years, and so but I never thought about it. And then when we came into the lockdown in September, we opened in August and we had to eat out to help out, and it was great, and it sort of took my mind off it. But then when the threat of another lockdown started to appear, something switched in my head, and I don't know if it was a lack of heart for the fight we were maybe facing. And as I said at the beginning, no one anticipated a year down the line we'd still be in the starting blocks. And so I woke up one morning and went and see Eddie and did a deal there. And then he had a few people who were interested, but no one had put their money down. So I did. And we've taken on what is an absolute whopper of a business. It's taking more of my time than the restaurant ever has. And that's saying something. We all know how much effort a restaurant takes. This is 2:30 in the morning till 7 p.m. Non-stop.
You get your fish at cost, though.
I do.
Yeah. It's really interesting. I have to say, one of my restaurants, Roxall, is right on the harbour, so we're right next door to the fishmongers there who go out the day boats, etc. And Jeff's the guy who runs it. I was in constant text messages with him and things, and he set up a delivery service. But he said pretty much every weekend's like Easter throughout the whole of lockdown. It was he's quite emotional actually about how the local community came out to actually queue for fresh fish more than he would see it before, because I think it reignited people in a who couldn't really go out. Didn't want to go to the supermarkets maybe so much because, well, one, there was nothing left in there anyway. Two, it was
supermarket fish.
Yeah, the scaring or being scared of being in lots of people in one go, and so sort of rediscovered the local kind of places, as you say. Hearing people queuing up for cheese, it's wonderful, really, isn't it?
Well, Eddie's had. I mean, we're on a block, and the queue in first lockdown was right round the corner, which is phenomenal. And it's like that today. You come up there on an afternoon, and we work as hard and as I hustle it like a chef. We're not there to hang about. We want to serve people and get the next one in, because I don't want them standing outside for 40 minutes. And people are just delighted to get something fresh, I think. And it's reigniting. This lockdown is reigniting people cooking at home, which is
I mean, that's the point I was trying to get to as well, because there are other industries which actually have been affected much worse than ours, and still will continue to be so. Theatre, music, etc., etc., etc. But we were badly hit by this, and I do think it's really interesting to see that out of this, I think we're a very, very resilient industry. I remember the credit financial crash of 2008, 2009, which basically ended fine dining pretty much, certainly in London for a while. And it gave birth to this really interesting sort of street food scene where lots of young chefs were coming up. They didn't have the backing or the funding to open posh restaurants, so they got in their Airstreams and started cooking outside and stuff. And it was this whole boom, which has now completely reshaped the sort of what we eat, now, I think. And I do think that, as bad as it has been, and there will be a lot of recovery time, certainly economical, that this is going to really change again for the better, the face of our industry for sure. As per, people like you going out, never done it before, but, fishmongers, that could then lead to really incredible business for you.
Well, we've opened a second branch.
It's amazing.
It's been so good. We opened another one, Eddie's North Pier, 3 weeks ago, and it hit the ground running. It's in a neighbourhood that was crying out for it, and it's been fantastic, really well received. So
And sorry, you've both mentioned eat out to help out quite a bit. So I'll ask you about this, Bob. So for us, it was eat out to help out. So we were flat out, basically. But what we did, one of the things we learned actually in this lockdown was, or when we reopened on the 4th of July, was usually we've been a 7-day-a-week operation, particularly in the summer months, absolutely ramming the covers in, and making hay, because obviously by the coast we're quite seasonal and all that sort of thing. But always wondered why I never make any money. When we reopened in the 4th of July through the summer, it was really good. We shut Monday, Tuesday, open Wednesday to Sunday, obviously reduced covers. But what that meant was we could really sort of keep a close eye on our staff costs versus the covers versus the amount of food we could order in. And it became a much better formula, I think. So we've definitely learned from that. The eat out to help out was great for us, although we were shut Monday, Tuesday, which sort of worked against us a bit because it was only Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. But did either of you sort of do your own thing and carry that on afterwards? So doing discounts or anything like that, Bob?
I did. We were shut Monday, Tuesday as well. So we opened Wednesdays, and Wednesday was a Saturday. Wednesday became a Saturday every week. So it was great. We had 2 Saturdays in a week. We continued it until the next lockdown. I think people were kind of stunned. For me, I think people realized that, it wasn't that safe to go out. We didn't experience a great knock-on effect after the event finished. So.
What about you, Bob?
Yeah, I mean, we have a city restaurant and we have like yourself, a coastal restaurant. So the coastal restaurant is all summer long, flat out, wintertime, just tumbleweed. Whereas the city restaurant is more 52 weeks of the year.
Yes, yeah.
August, funny enough, would be the busiest month in both the restaurants. So, I mean, I don't think the eat out to help out scheme really made a difference to our overall sales figures. We got a different, it was like, we always got a Groupon crowd that kind of made it harder to keep the social distancing. They weren't, our regulars tended to stay away. So
yeah,
I mean, financially it was okay. It was no better, but it made it more difficult, definitely, to manage it.
It was an interesting one. Obviously, it was a boost from the government to help the economy back in, and I think it was aimed at not aimed at everyone, as it were, sort of thing. I mean, since then, I mean, have you been able to attract sort of different types of customers, people that you wouldn't normally have seen beforehand, or is it the same sort of old faces and things?
Well, definitely with the online sales, we've got new customers. Originally we started out just a click and collect service in Belfast because it was a ghost town and people could access the restaurant very easily, no traffic jams. But as things started to roll on, there was more and more traffic, more difficult to get parking. So we started with a courier service to the whole of Northern Ireland. So we've definitely picked up a lot more customers who would be 100 miles away from the restaurant, who maybe have been once a year, but now can get us once a week if they want into their house. So
that's fantastic.
We've picked up a lot of new customers around the country.
Yeah. So I mean, what I'm seeing out of this is, there are lots of positives. We've got to look on the bright side of things, I have to say. So, I mean, look, let's not get to the politics side, but I mean, in terms of staffing, how did you, have you maintained communications with your staff throughout the whole lockdown period? Was everyone okay in terms of the furlough situation? Did you utilise holiday days at all for people during this period? I'll come to you again, Bob. It's just interesting to sort of, obviously people on furlough, so they're not allowed to do any work, but you still need to try and keep in touch with them. I set up a couple of WhatsApp groups with my chefs and got my front of house guys just to say hello, just to say, what's going on, what are you having for dinner today, etc., etc. Because I just wanted to keep that momentum going, really, because as we all know, human beings can become very lethargic, and I think for a lot of staff who are employees, not necessarily the business owners, sat at home, if the weather's nice, in their gardens having a beer or a barbecue, if not watching Netflix, there is that sort of level of lethargy which can creep in a bit. So I just wanted to sort of touch base with my staff to, keep them motivated a bit like that. I mean, it's a tricky one, isn't it, with staff?
You've got a huge team, Mark. 160 odd rents and mortgages you're responsible for. We're quite lucky. We're a small team. We managed to keep everyone on the books. Of course, we didn't get rid of anyone. We talked to them all. I mean, my chefs were working with me doing the social distancing menu, so that was good. And now that we're into the fish retail business, we've actually brought staff from the restaurant into that operation as well to work with us, so that they're not stuck at home twiddling their thumbs and in some cases losing their minds. So
yeah. Bob?
Yeah, well, I mean, we had an interesting scenario at the start where myself and the other director in the company, we didn't get furlough. So we actually had to come into work while the furloughed staff were at home. So for the first 5 to 6 weeks of the online operation, my business partner, he's the chef in the operation. So he was up in the kitchen and I was downstairs sorting out the logistics and the IT stuff, which was interesting. And the staff were phoning in to see how we were getting on and how we were enjoying working for a change. So when it picked up, we were able to bring the staff in. So about 25-30% of them working full time now on the retail side.
Oh, that's good.
We bring in, so the big weeks like Valentine's, Mother's Days, we were able to bring in another third on partial furlough. And then the rest of the staff, we keep in touch. They call in to see their friends. So they're all sitting ready. We haven't lost any staff. So they're all sitting ready just for reopening. Well,
yeah. So we decided to sort of stay closed because we weren't set up really for takeaway, delivery, that sort of stuff. So we did a Christmas Day menu, we did a Valentine's menu, we did a Mother's Day, and we're going to do Easter as well. So that was really good. We had great feedback from the customers and things like that. Sadly, we're just starting to find out now that after all this furlough, gone through all that, we are actually, we've had quite a few notices come in, I have to say. And whilst I think a lot of them actually, the ones that the main people, I would say key members who've given their notice, have actually decided to move completely away from catering. So I think there's going to be sort of quite a large backlash from this because people have seen what would happen in this industry, and now they're looking to do something else just in case it happens again, which is a real shame. But I completely understand their situations. It's just, I'm hoping there's lots of people out there looking for new jobs.
We're used to doing split shifts. We're used to working 12, 14-hour days. The thought of doing that for a lot of people must be, why have I done that for a career? That's insane,
Yeah,
and
no, it's true. And I think
they can look at something else, and now that they've had a break, because sometimes you can't see the wood from the trees. So if they stop and think, and there's a life I have to live, and do I have to do 60, 70 hours in a week? Is that my working career for the rest of my life?
Yeah,
you can't blame them.
I think you're going to get two types of people who are just desperate to get back into their passion and get back into the front of house, restaurant managers, waiting staff who love dealing with people and things, and chefs, creative, etc. And then other people who just like you say, have seen another life out there and think, I'll keep, let's say if you're a chef, cooking just a Sunday lunches at home and go off and find something else, which is absolutely fair enough. But it's a tricky one indeed.
I'm in a position where I'm quite lucky. I think that I've found eddies to keep me really busy. But I know it could well be the end of my life in a kitchen, which I've done. I've been a chef since 1985. I've been cooking every day of my life, long hours, loving it, and never anticipated I wouldn't be doing it anymore.
Yeah.
But now I'm in a position where I just don't see when I'll get into a kitchen. I really don't. So
well, you got the fishmongers to consider as well, haven't you? That's the other thing as well. So you're diversifying a bit, as I did, when I.
But I am going to miss it. That's something that I'll have to come to.
Well, you get over it quite quickly, trust me.
When
you can cook for pleasure at home, and you haven't got to worry about, where's the spinach,
The past 4 weeks, I've been doing consultancy work for one of our wholesale customers in Edinburgh, just because I get into his kitchen and I get to mess about in one of his kitchens. It's great.
Yeah, it's interesting. So in terms of getting the message out to your customers, I mean, obviously, I class my business as fairly modern business. We're sadly, it's a necessary evil, but we're all over social media. And this is how apart from our websites, we've really been posting out message after message after message from all of my sites to keep customers informed about what we're doing. So from April the 12th, the slightly confusing, well, it's not confusing, you can open if you have an outside space. But obviously that's all weather dependent. So we're going to keep our customers really informed. And I think the way we're going to do it is by looking at the week's weather forecast and, just saying, look, we're open Wednesday, Friday and Saturday this week, let's say, depending on the weather. But I mean, how have you found communicating with your, I mean, do you have newsletters? Do you put things up on your website? What's your method of communication with your customers?
We do all the social media, Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, everything. We also have our database where we update. We try and do a newsletter as regularly as possible, but we have to have something to say. You don't want people, if you're going to put more spam in someone's inbox,
still
make it worthwhile, So but I mean, people are generally they're well receiving. They want to be informed. They want to know what you're going to plan and what you're going to do, and as you say, it is a modern thing. It's changed. Social media has changed our industry forever, and you have to use that. You absolutely have to. Because you can capture different demographics. Your older generation will be on Facebook. They won't really be on Instagram or Twitter. Younger ones will be. So you can get a different hit from each different source that you're putting it to.
What about you, Bob? Are you an avid tweeter?
Yeah, I mean, when I think back when I opened the first restaurant in 2004, you had to put an advertisement in a local paper to announce what your menu was that week, and it was £100 or whatever. And now for free, you just tweet it out, and on Twitter we have nearly 20,000 followers. So bang, it goes out there, it's free. So I would do Twitter myself, which can be dangerous sometimes. And my business partner's wife, who's obviously a bit younger, she would do Instagram and Facebook, and again, it's a different age group. We have two mailing lists. We have a mailing list for the restaurant. We have a mailing list for Mccubery School. So once a week, we'll update people what's new, what's going on the menu. And we also have a YouTube channel, which has been great because, alongside the more at home prep meals, oven ready meals, we also have a range of seafood that we sell online. So people who are keen to cook themselves, we have instructional videos on our channel to take them along on that journey.
Very good. Yeah, that's great. YouTube channel. Fantastic. Okay, so let's move into this post-COVID world. Let's say everything on the roadmap stays the same. So I believe it's the 21st of June when we're currently supposed to be back to normal, I think, with no social distancing, just open. What sort of operational practices and changes that we've just gone through when we have been allowed to open over the last year, do you think we'll see still? I mean, do you envisage people still coming in, wearing masks? Do you think they'll expect our staff to still wear masks, although there's nothing, in the laws to say that? Will you keep hand sanitizers everywhere? I mean, when do we just stop and start back to whatever normal is again?
I don't think there is. I'll go back to normal. I think this is certainly for the foreseeable future. We know that there's an 80-90% success rate on the vaccine. So that's a 10-20% fail. People are still going to be fairly wary of that going forward. And I think you have to offer as much security and make it as safe an environment as possible. Not everyone will care. I think the younger generation, your Nando's and McDonald's, etc., they'll open their doors and they'll be packed out. If your clientele is of a more senior age group, they're going to be concerned. I think you'll see some people only on special occasions. Not everyone in the 50 above age group will go out the way they did before. Certainly not if they don't feel safe. So you'll have to make everything as safe an environment as possible.
I wonder how long that will last in our memories, because it's, you know, as a devil's advocate, we do react to things very, very quickly, especially with social media. It does tend to blow things up very, very quickly. And by the same token, you know, I think, does something else come along that will all of us, I mean, certainly not in terms of the economic situation that it's caused, but, you know, will people's memories of this continue to last, do you think? Or do you think it's something that, I totally take on board what you've just said, Campbell, and I think 100% you're right. And I think it's as restaurant owners and business owners, you know, we need to still keep those practices in place to make sure that everyone's feeling safe. And, you know, what's, you know, there's nothing better than a hygienic restaurant anyway, let's face it. So anything that improves that is obviously great. But I just wonder down the line, you know, when we start talking about Brexit again and things like that, which we're not going to do in this question and answer session, but is there going to be something else that then takes over a bit, you know, maybe sort of this time in 2022 or something? It's just going to be very, very interesting.
You have to adapt, you know, and I think that's what makes our industry quite a vibrant one. You know, we don't stand still. We have to constantly battle to face the challenges. Can be different every single day anyway. So, you know, it's what we're trained all our lives to do, is you find a solution. And
as everything, even in the small period when we were allowed to reopen from the 4th of July, whenever that was, till October, I think it was, wasn't it? I can't really remember now. It's all a blur 2020. You can do as much as possible, but it's then down to the customer. You know, the customer has to work with you. And as we all know, there's some majority who are very keen to do that, but then there's always others that aren't. So, you know, I wonder if restaurants and business owners are going to have to get a bit more strict. I don't know, it's going to be very interesting.
We had people coming in refusing to wear masks, and, you know, we're only asking you to wear a mask from the front door to your table.
Or when you go to the toilet.
Or when you go to the toilet, and they were refusing. You know, it's 10 paces.
Yeah. Well, we actually had
take it off and you're fine. But people
we had a little rule book, for want of a better word, a little card of you know what I'm afraid you have to do. We made it quite funny. You know, Boris has asked that you do this, so please, you know, blah blah blah. And I think 99.9% of our customers completely got it, and they were just happy to be out. You know, but there is always that sort of small group, and we were just very, very clear. If you don't adhere to our rules, which we're putting not just for our own staff, you know, we want to protect our staff.
Our safety.
There's the door, sadly, but you know, we didn't. I don't think we got to that at all, actually, in the end. So obviously, this is we're talking very much about how it's affected us, but certainly in my lifetime, the one that I can remember, it's affected the whole world. You know, there's not any part of the world that this hasn't affected. Have you taken on board or been watching or seen anything that maybe other countries or places around the world have done that, you know, you're going to put into practice, or you think we should have done, not on a political scale, but certainly in terms of, you know, how maybe things that other countries like Italy or you know, China or wherever have done that you think you might put into practice when we reopen?
We know that the Southeast Asian countries, Japan, I think, as an example, have handled this really well, and they've been through this before. So it kind of takes us back to, will we still be wearing face masks? And it's standard over there, and it has been for 15 years or whatever.
So like from SARS and things
exactly.
Like that.
Yeah. So it could well be that on that basis that we have to do this in a long-term scenario.
Well, I mean, I think from them it's germs full stop, isn't it? When you're getting onto a packed tube, do you want to be there breathing in other people's germs? I think they've looked at it like that for quite a while, haven't they?
Personally, I don't think we will be like that in this country.
No. I
think we probably should, though.
Yeah. Yeah, it depends what time you get the tube, I suppose, isn't it, as well? what are your plans then? Let's start with Bob on this. So we're easing in, to, I think you said, Bob, you had a nice outside space. So I'm assuming you're going to be opening something from April the 12th. And then from May the 17th, we're allowed to open indoors again, but still with social distancing. And then assuming it's all going well and good, from June the 21st, we can then open as normal. I mean, are you just going to dust everything down and get back into it as quick as you can? Hopefully by July, we'll be, kind of staycation, hammered, full everywhere you look.
Well, unfortunately, Mark, we don't have any dates over here, so we don't. It's all
you don't what, sorry?
Different. We don't have any dates, reopening dates here.
Oh,
so we don't.
Seriously, yeah. Okay, wow.
So we're still in the dark. So we
okay,
are.
so yeah, no, I'm not up to. I thought it's a kind of a blanket thing. Really, that's very interesting. But wow.
No, we have no dates here. So, it's the next review date is the 16th of April. So I can't imagine us being open even outside until probably the middle of May.
So very frustrating for you then to see, us having some form of plan and you guys.
Yeah, indicative dates would help, So at the minute now we're operating the online seafood, the online more at home dishes, which isn't bad, I have to confess. But I mean, I do feel sorry for the staff that have been on furlough and are sitting at home and and just stuck, in a rut.
Yeah.
So, I mean, what we're doing now is we're gearing up to open up the outside area full blast. So what we're planning on doing is putting a kitchen, small kitchen on the outside with another bar area. So we'll run it full time, 7 days a week come the summertime. Inside area, we'll probably have 30% of the covers. It'll be less of a street food menu. It'll be a bit more like our own restaurant menu.
Yeah.
But again, the focus mainly will be, because what we saw last summer was when people turned up and they saw there was a choice of eating outside, they had a table booked inside, invariably they chose to have the outside table, even if it was raining or even if it wasn't a warm day. The preference was to eat outside.
Yeah, gosh, I can't believe you don't have dates yet. Sorry about that. That's very much.
In Scotland, we're indoors. You're only allowed to open till 8 p.m. and no alcohol. We're indoors anyway, so we don't have an outdoor space. I won't be reopening Merienda until we feel confident that we're opening for a sustained period. If it looks like we're going,
that's interesting. So you're not going to open when you're allowed to. You're going to open when you feel the time is right. Personally,
absolutely. I want to get it up and running. I want to see the customers back in there, but I don't want to go through the opening it up and 6 weeks later we're. So
in your mind, Campbell, what date have you got sort of kind of earmarked?
26th of April, we're allowed to open until 8 p.m. But as I say, without alcohol indoors. I mean,
but so in your mind, when have you got something that you're like a goal date, or are you just waiting?
No. I mean, I'll be quite happy if we can get it open in the summertime. That's obviously a big period for everyone. Edinburgh's not going, as I think we touched on before we started today, that the festival's not going to happen in Edinburgh this year, which is obviously a huge draw. You want to be open.
Sure,
but tourists aren't going to be in Edinburgh, so it's you have to look at the who's going to be there. It's going to be locals. The beer gardens will do really well. We've seen that the sun's been out this week in Edinburgh. The parks are chock-a-block. So people are itching to get back out there and experience relationships and friendships and social activity. But for us, we'll do it when we think it's a sustainable operation that we can mount and keep it going.
Okay, well, I'm going to ask you a depressing question now. So, heaven forbid we get open again, and then let's say, we still have lots of people who haven't been vaccinated. This is something we're going to have to live with forever. It's not suddenly going to go away, like the flu, like all these other things. Heaven forbid we get put into another lockdown, say, come November. What are your thoughts of the landscape? What will it do to our industry from there, in your minds?
it's going to make it very difficult for a lot of businesses. You know, if the government support's still in place, if the furlough scheme is still in place, that gives everyone a bit of security. But I think there comes a point where, you know, you're battling so hard to survive. I mean, margins aren't huge in hospitality anymore. It's a different industry in the past sort of 20, 30 years. We need a sustained period of operation, and without that, it will make it very difficult for a lot of companies, for sure.
So, like you're saying, Campbell, you know, you'd rather stay closed, even if you are allowed to open.
I think it's more soul destroying. Stocking up your fridges, getting your menus, bringing your staff in, retraining, refreshing everything, decorating again, and just making sure it's all ready to go, and all the social distancing.
So I'm sort of the same.
And
I was very much...
we're screwed. That's where it becomes very difficult mentally for us all.
Yeah,
to continue.
And I was very much of the opinion it's fine, we can do this outside and this inside, etc. But for me, it's all a case of get open, but get open properly, and when you can sustain that. No one's got a crystal ball. We don't know what's going to happen, but you know, and some people, you know, have to be open. That, you know, they you know, if you a husband and wife team that you know, run your own restaurant and you live there and you work there and you can't get furlough and all that, you know, these people are desperate to open and you know, absolutely have to open. And I think, you know, if we do go into another lockdown, we've borrowed so much money as a country anyway, in general. How do we keep on doing that? I mean, that's a political question we shouldn't get into as well either, but it just, we have to start getting some form of income in. So just fingers crossed we don't get to that. And but I think everyone has a part to play in that by not going out, not breaking rules.
Do you think maybe that there's I mean, there was the herd immunity thing right at the start that the Prime Minister tried to sort of guide us towards, if you like. It might well come to the point that that's just we have to just get on with life and do our best and just keep going. By
which time you'd hope that people who are most susceptible would have had their vaccinations. But again, you know, there's been plenty of young, fit, healthy people getting badly affected by this. So there's a lot of cases in Scotland. I've been looking at it the past couple of weeks, and it's still 500-600 cases a day. Yeah. But the deaths have definitely dramatically slowed down. Yes. So it might well be that once now we're all pretty much getting to a strong level of vaccination. Let's hope so. Let's just go ahead. Right, Bob, on a slightly brighter note, I mean, I am desperate to go out to eat somewhere. Absolutely cannot wait. Not my own restaurants, by the way, but hopefully I won't be able to get a table. But I mean, you know, Bob, I mean, you're obviously, anyone in the industry works really hard all the time, but you do get some downtime. And like me, I'm assuming you enjoy spending your time going out for lunch in a pub or restaurant or something like that. Is there anywhere that you're just literally desperate to go and eat at?
Well, if I've been honest, Mark, what I'm really missing is a pint of Guinness. And you know, to me too. That's a meal in itself, and that's probably what I missed most. You know, drinking at home or drinking. It's not the same out of the tins, is it? It's not the same, and you know, I just can't wait to sit down. I mean, there's a great pub beside our restaurant in Belfast, Kelly Cellars, and I just can't wait to sit down there and have a lovely pint of Guinness with maybe half a dozen oysters and talk absolute nonsense with a few friends. Absolutely, for hours. I can't wait. That's what I can't wait to do.
Yeah. No, yeah. What about you, Campbell?
Yeah, same. I mean, we rarely get to go out and eat in restaurants, but you don't know how much you miss it until it's been taken away. I can't wait. And like Bob, I can probably murder a pint in a beer garden somewhere, sitting with some friends, some sun. That's, you know, that social thing that the hospitality gives the world. That's what's been missing.
Yeah. I mean, there's definitely the social aspect to it, isn't it? I mean, you know, men and women the same. But my wife's dying to go out with her friends, you know, have a nice lunch. Moan about how awful I've been for the last year at home and stuff, and I'll probably do the same with mine. Moan about how awful I've been for the last year. I've seen lots of questions popping up in here. I think we're going to answer some of those in a bit. Just a couple more things from me to you guys then. So yeah, okay, industry news. I mean, I've never been one for sort of really following the industry news so much. I rely on a few things I've signed up to which pop up on my screen. I generally like to just try and keep, my eyes focused on my own businesses. But I mean, are you glued to sort of the industry press? If so, which ones have you found really helpful to give you more information to this?
No, I worry about what we do, and
yeah, Bob.
No, just really pick up stuff from Twitter, what's happening elsewhere, really, and I WhatsApp group with a few other friends in the industry here in Belfast, so that's where I get my information. Really.
Yeah, probably the safest thing actually. And well, let's just end on one thing then. So I'll throw this to both of you to answer. So obviously, since a year ago today, when we got told to shut down for the first time, we've been closed, we've been open, we've sort of been open and then closed again, etc., etc. What's been your biggest business highlight? I think I know your answer, Campbell, but I'll come to you first anyway. What's been your biggest business highlight over the last year?
For me, I suppose it was when the orders first started coming in, and I realised that I wasn't going to be sitting on my couch for very long. That was, it was a bit of a light at the end of the tunnel. It was already a very short tunnel, but to know that we were still going to be of use and of service to the community, and we were still going to be able to feed people, which as a chef, that's why I get out of my bed every morning, is to go and feed people. Yeah. And when that was clearly still going to happen, I think I became quite relaxed about, okay, we're going to face some problems. Life isn't going to be what we expect, but we can still move forward. And that was hugely important, I think, for my sanity, and to keep my staff sane and know that for them there's a light at the end of the tunnel, that we will come out of this. We'll knuckle down, we'll face some hard times, but we will see the restaurant back,
Yeah. And Bob?
Yeah, I mean the whole year's been a real roller coaster from the the closing down to starting up an online business, and then realizing your 10-year-old website's not going to cut it, and it starts to crash, and
housekeeping
you have no idea about IT, and you're involved, so you have to bite the bullet and put together a whole new website. And you see the business evolve from just click and collect to employing some taxi drivers, and then employing a courier company, then getting rid of the courier company, then finding a small food company who deliver across Northern Ireland in chilled vans, which was a perfect fit for us. Moving from the 3-course meals with all the little pots and stuff, and you look at the packaging, and that was quite horrific. Mm-hmm. So we moved away from there to give them like a menu, starters, mains, and then we discovered these bags, which were perfect, these aluminium bags. And then as soon as we found them, of course, they were out of stock. So we had to bite the bullet and bring a pallet in from Vietnam, which took 8 weeks, but we got there. So we ended up in a place where the business now is actually generating profit. The only miss is we're using less staff, so some of our staff sitting at home. But we've brought this business from zero to a brand new business within a year that now ticks over quite comfortably. So
obviously, you've both got some really good success stories there of everyone's worst year ever, I think. There's obviously lots of people, watching this, interacting. Questions will be answered later. What advice, Campbell, would you give moving forward to anyone here that's kind of struggling or anything like that, in terms of when to reopen, what to do, things like that?
I'd say you just keep the faith. You know what your business needs. It needs you at the front to be strong. if you can hang in there, we'll come out of this. We will absolutely come out of this, and that's what I've been telling people from day one. Things will get better eventually. You need to be standing. You need to be there and strong, ready to go.
Yeah, wise words, Bob.
Yeah, I suppose. I mean, everybody's business is unique. Everybody, it's very personal to themselves. But what I would say for the hospitality industry is, I certainly think after this we're going to be a lot more appreciated. I think there's a lot more of pent up demand there. And, from the government side, I think they'll have noticed a massive hole in their finances. Like hospitality has been a great source of taxes for them, VAT, PAYE, business rates, everything else. So hopefully they'll have noticed a massive chunk in their income, and they'll probably treat us with a bit more respect in the future.
Yeah, well, absolutely. Let's hope so. And, along with those other arts and things like that actually then, certainly any major city which has theatres and things like that actually brings us revenue as well, in terms of people coming up to eat out in restaurants and all that sort of thing. It's a house of cards, like a domino effect, isn't it? And I would say as well, I just think, again, you've just got to stay true to what you were doing before. Really just focus on getting through to the end of 2021 and then looking passionately towards 2022. I have to say, I do think everyone keeps going on about the whole staycation thing. I don't think there's going to be confidence in travelling abroad for a lot of people for quite a while. So I am really hoping that we will get some halcyon days over the next couple of years in our industries, and maybe where you're usually looking, at, like you said, Bob, kind of a seasonal area, that actually the kind of the doldrum months of maybe November, January and February, we'll hopefully find over the next couple of years will be really, really, fantastic, and supported by people who aren't going away as much. Maybe they'd normally go and get a winter sun holiday or something. People aren't travelling into major cities so much anymore to go to the offices. I think so many people work from home. I think that's just going to become the new norm for people. So, rather than travelling into, London or Edinburgh or any of Belfast major cities to go to work, they'll be, really utilising their sort of more local restaurants. It's certainly what we felt in the period between the lockdowns. So let's just hope to everyone out there that's, watching and sort of tuned in today, that we do have some really fantastic time ahead. We can recoup a lot of our losses, and good luck to everyone.
Can I say, I think there's an opportunity as well to reset for a lot of the thinking that's led us not to where we are, but to where we are. We have to be cleverer in how we environmentally work. And I think this is the perfect opportunity, and it shouldn't be passed up. If you can source locally, a lot of people bang on about doing it locally, but they don't. It comes from a big national supplier, and you don't even know where it's coming from. I think you've got to look at supporting your local industries, and that's a great start for everyone going forward. Yeah, well, yeah. I mean, especially as we're talking in terms of seafood and things like that. Exactly, especially if you're buying fish in Edinburgh. Yeah, Eddie's. From Eddie's, yeah. Okay, so I bring Greg back in now to go through some of the questions. I saw lots of them popping up on my screen. It'd be good to go through those now.
That would be great, Mark. Thank you very much to you and Bob and Campbell. That was, do you know what? At times it was really difficult to hear. And I think that's important. It really is. It's you guys telling your story. I think we as a nation have forgotten how good we had it. And I believe that there will be that boom coming, and food service will play a huge role in that, hospitality in general. And you're right, Campbell. I hope there are some changes to the way we act as consumers and conduct as businesses. I think it was very difficult to hear you guys talk about the stop-start. And I that's something else that I hope we're able to get past, that kind of get ready, restock, get the staff back in, get the place up to scratch, go, and then stop again. That must be incredibly demoralizing. And it really was tough to hear that. Inspiring on the other half, or the other side of the coin, hear about, there are words like pivoting and adapting and evolving, and I think you guys are incredible examples of that, and it's amazing to see it. And I think there will be casualties. There are casualties, and there will be more. I just hope that boom coming is enough to pull as many forward as possible. You've told a survival story today, guys, and I think that's the bit that's really inspiring and important for us to take away, and the rest of the audience as well. And Bob, I will join you in the fact that there is nothing better than a pint of Guinness across the water from where I'm sitting just now, and I will do my best to join you in having one of those when we can again one day. We have had some phenomenal questions on the chat, guys, that I'll just field for you just now, and please, the three of you, jump in as and when you can. So the first one is around the adaptation of food businesses in general, so cafes, delis, restaurants, pop-ups, takeaways, all these different initiatives, and restructuring of small town centres, so safe zones. These are being developed as ways to help and the industry to look forward and become a bit more sustainable. How can you see businesses becoming prepared for future uncertainty? So I suppose it's the question of, well, what have we learned from this? How can businesses change and adapt more?
I think it'll depend on the situation. I mean, a lot of people have shown themselves that they can actually just take a 180, turn around and keep putting one foot in front of the other. I think, it's the knowledge that you don't have to be in a square peg. If you need to adapt that to a round peg, go off and do it. Just try not stand still. There's something you can do to change, to generate income if you just think outside the box.
I think we're very creative. We are creative by nature. Obviously, that's what we do. We create food, we create ambience, and I think because of that, you just need, hate the saying, but you've got to think outside the box a bit. And in those situations, I think that's where some of the best ideas of restaurants, pop-ups, food styles comes from. It is from adversity, as I said before. 2008-9, the massive crash there. It just gave birth to this whole new way of fantastically exciting young chefs and food and restaurants and pop-ups, and those pop-ups then eventually went into local pubs, which instead of paying large rents on restaurants, and then those pubs then went into sort of restaurants, and now some of the best chefs who I would say are around at the moment sort of were born out of that sort of adversity. And I think we're in a similar situation now, albeit this is much more about people's health and well-being than the financial aspect was. But I do think, yes, I think obviously we're all confined by government rules and legislations, but if we're creative enough, I think we can really look at diversifying and reinventing ourselves over and over again. I think that's very important, and maybe have some backup plans in your head should the worst happen, or anything like that.
Good advice, Mark. Bob, anything to add?
It's also amazing how adaptable our customers are. In November, December, we had customers outside Mourne Seafood Bar, having a pint of Guinness, eating salt and chili squid, and it was freezing, but they just wrapped up warm, and they were prepared to do that. And 5 years ago, I would have said you're crazy even to suggest that, but they were more than happy to do that.
Just put some extra chili in it, Bob.
Yeah. Anywhere but in they want to be now. That's the thing, isn't it? Anywhere but indoors.
So that's an interesting thing, isn't it, for cultural change moving forward? We do seem to have built a resilience and an acceptance to the outdoors in all weather, which is lovely, and I hope that carries forward like some of our Scandinavian neighbours. And
Absolutely.
I suppose that kind of leads on to question number 2, which is around reduced covers and the kind of general viability for many moving forward. Do you think that will change the landscape? Does it mean for the future smaller places, maybe more outdoor space, again, for those kind of backup plans and future uncertainty?
I think you probably just need to look at your opening hours as well. So if you've got reduced covers, do you just do a lunch and a dinner, or do you do a 12 till 8 service or something like that? So it's more of an all-day dining situation, or indeed add breakfast on where you never did that before, and have a sort of a 10:30 till 8 p.m. situation. I think, obviously keeping your staff costs is key. Obviously, it's all about a ratio of customers to staff all the time anyway. So I just think you kind of almost know how many customers you're going to do if they're reduced as well, because if you've got 30 capacity and you're going to fill that every single day, that's almost a bit better than doing like 10 for lunch or 40 for dinner, because you can really keep on top of what food you're ordering in, how many staff you need day to day. So it almost becomes a little bit more regimented. And I think what we found specifically in the in-between period, where we opened up just 5 days a week on the lockdown levels, it was much easier to control than just, when we threw our doors open and were absolutely rammed, probably had too many staff on, making huge amounts of turnover, but losing it all through staff costs and things like that. I definitely think you've just got to re-look at your opening hours, maybe think you're offering a bit as well. Because the most important...
A lot of people shouldn't be scared to change what they've been doing. What's worked for you for 10 years, maybe it's not going to be right going forward. Don't be scared to think about something different and do something different. What we've learned definitely, and Bob, I'm sure will back me up here, is that we never got in this industry to do takeaway, but it's absolutely worked. So don't be regimented and try not to think, well, this is how I've always done it, that's what I'll have to do, because there's no harm in trying something new.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah. I mean, another big factor has been the reduced VAT. If we're going to work in the future with reduced covers, that there's no way we can ever go back up to 20%. It was just far too much in a labor-intensive industry. We're competing for tourists with countries like France, Spain, Portugal, who have 7-8% VAT. And when we were sitting at 20%, it was just crazy, absolutely crazy. Unfortunately, one of the big things, from the morning at home range, so I'm sending out the same dish I would sell in the restaurant, but at 0 VAT, compared to if they sat in the restaurant, the VAT man, he gets 20% of the guaranteed, where I make a profit or not. But I send it out by courier, he gets 0,
Mm-hmm. Okay.
At the moment.
Wow.
Yeah, at the moment, Mark. Well said. And the last one, guys, that we have for you today, so this is from a company who have soft launched a new website in 2020, targeted at restaurants, fishmongers, smokers, etc., and that caters for online ordering of salmon, or they can do it through an app as well, which is supported by an over-the-phone service. So a digital channel for this business, bringing salmon to restaurants, fishmongers, etc. This person's interested in your opinion in what ways this could fit with you guys as restaurateurs moving forward. Is that the kind of thing? Does that kind of take into consideration some of the pivot? Will you guys use channels like that more often now than more traditional supplier lines of communication? Would that help?
It's going to be cost driven, I suppose, primarily. Quality and cost. I mean, we want to buy as local as possible, but we're still driven by a bottom line. If anyone's got something to sell to any restaurant, and they can give a better product at a better price, then they'll always be interested.
Bob, Mark?
I didn't really understand the question, to be honest, I have to say.
So let me read it again, Mark. I've probably stumbled through it. So this business have launched a new website in 2020 targeted at restaurants, fishmongers, smokers, etc., where people can order salmon online, or they can use an app. So it's a website or an app where businesses can order fish, and they're interested to know if that service would be something that would be interesting for you guys as restaurateurs in the future. Maybe you use businesses and services like that already, where you
I was going to say, most of my stuff I order online anyway. Well, certainly, as in I put my order through to my fishmonger online. I haven't put an order through to a fishmonger for 12 years, but my chefs do. Yeah, I mean, I guess so. I mean, Campbell answered that. He's probably the one to talk to because he actually owns a fishmonger and stuff. But yeah, I mean, for us, all the fish we get pretty much is from the southeast coast. We stretch around to Cornwall in terms of seasonality. The one thing we can't get from there, obviously, is salmon. So we get our salmon from suppliers who bring it down, obviously, from Scotland, etc. And then in terms of smoked fish, we use, very local people, Hastings, etc., as local to us as possible. But as Campbell said, first and foremost, it's always about the quality, right? I mean, that's where you start. In any decent restaurant, will start with the quality. Then obviously comes the price. If you can get similar quality for a much better price, then you would, sort of go for that price-driven one. Obviously, we're coming back into this. We've all lost huge amounts of money throughout this whole pandemic, and we have to build that money back up. So we were looking all over for ways to cut costs, trim costs, etc. But you cannot, whatever you do, bring the standards down or the quality down, because then there's so many people out there going to be vying for customers. You've still got to maintain what you want to do. So just to
can I also say that part of what I did, part of the reasoning, and a small part certainly, of doing the social distancing delivery thing right at the start, was to try and keep my suppliers also in business.
Yeah.
And I've got relationships after being doing this for 35 years that, I need to look after these guys as well. So there's a business relationship that's already in place. So you'd have to be awfully canny to get me to buy my salmon off someone that I've never met online, or really cheap.
Bob, anything to add to
that? No, we're a bit the same position as Mark. So, I would buy all our stuff direct. So off the boats, the fish, lobsters off our lobster guys. We have a mussel farmer or oyster farmer. So it all comes direct. Probably, salmon is the one thing that I do buy through a fish wholesaler. So if somebody was able to come to me direct, cut him out. But there would have to be a price advantage. There would have to be good quality. And it would have to be, a good, reliable delivery service to outcompete the guy I'm currently getting it off. So yeah, there is. I mean, in any market, there's always room there for a bit of disruption, but there can be good disruption and bad disruption.
Yeah, I mean, to end that point, I had my local veg guy on today. So we, you have your basic veg, obviously your carrots, your onions, your leeks, parsnips, that type of thing, whatever, which we get kind of from a larger wholesaler. Apart from things like heritage carrots and tomatoes and that sort of stuff. But if you're looking into your ultra seasonal local things, I had him on the phone literally 5 minutes before I came onto this, and they grow and supply all the local veg. And obviously last year we missed out on the asparagus season, which is my favourite vegetable, for the right reasons. Obviously it's only around 6 to 8 weeks a year. So I was on to him today saying, look, we're opening April the 12th. Properly, we're going to reopen in May. How long do you think the asparagus season is going to last this year? Et cetera. And I'm desperate. He was phoning me up because he's excited about me opening up my 9 sites. In fact, I say 9. The 9th one is going to be open in July, and it's we're doing a restaurant right slap bang on the beach. So that is going to be all fish and all seafood, full stop. We're going to have 1 Parma ham starter and 1 steak. Otherwise, everything is going to be the local catch of the day, which we're very, very excited about as we're on with Love Seafood. Yeah, I've lost myself now. Self-promoting. I've sent myself off down a rabbit hole.
There's nothing wrong with that, Mark. I don't think, particularly at this point in the session as well. And you know what you've done? You've created a beautiful segue for me to bring back on screen a reminder of our Love Seafood support and
I did
assets.
that on purpose.
There you go. See, I knew you would. And it was beautiful, seamless, as they say. It's up there for the attendees to see today, and to access, alongside the information and the wisdom that you guys have imparted today. We hope that there's, support there, and like you say, a bit of a thriving industry and sector and rebirth coming, particularly during the summer months. And it's my opportunity to say to you guys again, thank you so much for joining us today. So there's a thank you at the end.